Jiva Korja, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, or if you're watching a recording of this Fireside Chat. So welcome to another chat. This is our the eighth one, where I'm in conversation with a member of the Order of Bards, OBOD and Druid. And has become customary, I start the chat with a prayer for peace. Gamara Shiakon ar fud na crinne. Gamara Shiakon in our Jaili agus in our Jirha. Ganairi lin in our Garmaka. Gamij buikas jiv jehe kvdaka ispirit kvdaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities. For peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might seek through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters, that the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So let me see where you're all from. So Zane from California, Washington State, London, Aberdeenshire, lovely. Cheshire, Cumbria, Slough, Seattle, Crouch End, New York, Belgium, Northamptonshire, Wales, lovely. Abbots, England, I don't know where Abbots is. West Sussex, Pennsylvania, great. Where else have we got people? Lovely to see you all from Edinburgh, Ulster, South London, again, Washington, wonderful. So you're all very, very welcome. And Cardiff, Canada, sorry, there's a fly bothering me here. And Spain. So let me, we're going to the US this evening, to Nevada, and let me introduce my guest, Travis Clark. Travis, you're so, so welcome.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be here. Very, very, very happy to be here. Thank you.
So I know you live in Reno, and all I know about Reno, Nevada is the place where you can get a quick divorce from all these movies I watched when I was younger, when here in Ireland, there was no divorce, and it was amazing that whatever the characters could just drive down to Reno and get a quick divorce. So.
That's what we're known for. Biggest little city in the world. We get a quickie divorce.
So seriously, what is where you live like? I mean, Nevada is a big state, I believe, but what is your landscape like?
Well, so I am inland from California. We are considered we have a song for Nevada. It's called Home Means Nevada. We are the heart of the Golden West, as it says in the song. So a lot of the Westerns that you might see on TV and whatnot were usually filmed in Southern California, but some of them were filmed here. It's the high desert. And so our native state flower is the sagebrush. We have a lot of lowland bushes and dirt, lots of dirt. So we are a very dry state. I visited England recently and my skin was glowing with all the humidity, and I came back and had to continue to put on moisturizer all the time. So, but we are a fairly large, we are now what's called, I think, a mid-sized city. Since the COVID pandemic, our population has actually increased. We're now about 500,000. I think we're about 500,000. Okay. And we're getting bigger and bigger each time. So pretty metropolitan. I live in a suburb. I back up to a wetland, which is really nice. So I have some bigger bushes and shrubs that maybe we would see in the other parts of the desert. Yeah, it's a lot of wild open space. And I think we were mentioning when we were just getting up and running here that the whole of England can fit in the state of Nevada. Wow. So if that gives any context for folks around the world, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah. There's lots of yay, Travis. Hello, Travis.
Hello.
Obviously, there's Gabby and Pat Booker.
Oh, hey everybody, nice to hear. Yeah, I'm glad you're on. I had such a great time with those ladies. I want to say hello.
I
Nice
bet
to
you
see
did.
you all.
So Stephanie asks, which city? It's Reno, Stephanie.
Reno, yes.
Yeah.
We're considered northern Nevada.
Okay. And Julia Foyle says she used to live in Utah. It's very similar to Nevada.
Yep, very similar. Very similar.
Okay, so you're in the north, and then Las Vegas is down in the south.
Correct. About I think 400 miles away, so about 8 hours driving time away from me. Yep. Very desolate, long.
You only go at
Very
50 miles an hour. Oh, you're talking about miles, not
oh,
kilometers. Okay.
not kilometers. No, we can get up to 70, 85 miles an hour on that road. So I don't know how the conversion works, but you can go relatively fast. Some people make it in 7 hours, 7.5 hours. They're driving fast, but
Okay.
they can get in trouble for that.
So just as a druid then in Nevada, or in at your place,
Right.
High Nevada, North Nevada, how do you, or say, before we start there, how did you get into druidry, and what brought you to OBOD?
So it's quite a story. When I was younger, I had found myself attracted. I was raised Roman Catholic. I'm a gay man, and when I was about 15 years old, the priest had given a sermon about being nice to gays and lesbians, treat them like you would treat your animals, and so that was kind of my cue to find spirituality elsewhere. And I had started dabbling into Wicca and the occult, and found, I found it very, very intriguing and something that I really enjoyed. But I was young and didn't actually have a solid study. I carried those ideals with me throughout my life. I went through college, went through law school, and got out. And when I was in law school, I had a Siberian Husky dog, and Dakota is his name. And he was my spirit animal, very much attached to this dog, more than just, human animal relation. We were in sync on so many levels. And in 2017 he died from cancer. And that really it really hit me hard. I can talk about it now, but I'll tell you, I even probably will get a little teary, so I'll try to keep myself under control. But I had lost him in the spring of 2017. And in Nevada, we have the Black Rock Desert. And some people may know that. It's where the Burning Man Festival occurs each year. This is a very pagan, has roots in burning the wicker man. Literally, a wooden man is created and burned at the end of the week. And it was originally started in San Francisco, but it was moved to the Black Rock Desert, which is one of the native tribes of the area, the Paiute land. And so every year this festival occurs out there. About 70,000 people, 60 to 70,000 people. It's insane. It's a huge event. We'll go out to the Black Rock Desert. It's the flattest place on earth. And it's called the playa. It has, the dirt is made up of dead crustaceans. It is talcum powder fine. So it's just a very dusty, very very dirty area, but it's clean dirt, I guess. Anyway, so I'm out at the Burning Man Festival, and the way that the city is created is that the participants create the event. So everyone will bring out theme camps, not everyone, but there will be theme camps. And my friends and I were on what's called an art car. So people take vehicles and make them into floats, basically. And we were bopping around, and I had a heavy heart. I'd lost my spirit animal. I was, I'd kind of become a bit of a walking zombie, for lack of a better explanation, when you go through great heartache like that. And I was stopping. I don't drink, especially out there. I do drink a bit, but not so much out there because it's hot and you can, get yourself into trouble. So my friends were all drinking. We were doing a pub crawl to different camps. And there was a man I saw, very Santa Claus looking, very druid looking man, big white beard, big white hair. and he was shirtless with shorts on, and he was sitting at a table, and I thought he was reading tarot cards. So I thought, oh, okay, well, will you guys go over there and get a drink? I'm going to go get my cards read, and so having a little bit of experience when I was 15, I kind of, oh yeah, these reading cards, I'm going to go do this. So I wait my turn and I sit down, and they're not tarot cards, they're animal cards. And later I find out it's the Druid Animal Oracle. But at the time I did not know this. And so he has me shuffle the deck. He doesn't ask anything. I don't give him a name. I don't give him anything. I just sit down. That's it. And so I lay out 6 cards, and he looks at me and he goes, "You've lost your spirit animal, and it's impacting your magic. And if you don't figure this out, you will spiral and lose your magic." And I just start bawling. I'm like, oh my God, okay. I'm crying and losing my cool, as it were. And I asked him, like, well, how do I fix this? How do I save my magic? He's like, I don't know. Go figure it out and find me in a couple of years. And so I was like, perfectly, mysterious type of statement. So I left the event, came back to town, and started researching and looking into different occult practices and studies. I've always been an environmentalist from the time I was a young kid. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I grew up on Captain Planet, the cartoon, if anyone knows what that is. It's a bunch of environmentalists running around calling on the different elements and spirit, and they would create Captain Planet. He'd go out and save the world. And so I always thought to myself, look, if we don't have a world, we have nothing else. So that really kind of drew me to Druidry. I started reading books by John Michael Greer. I had Philip's book, and I started kind of doing a dive into that. I went to a few of the shops around town and started remaking an altar from when I was 15. I had a small altar, and I was like, okay, well, I think it's time I kind of start exploring more of this. And by that, so that was in August, September of 2017. By January of 2018, I was signing up for OBOD, and I had come to the website and found, you kind of feel like you're coming home, is a way of saying it. You feel that you've found your spiritual center and a place where you can express yourself, and that comports with your ideals. And so so that is my long story, I guess, of how I found OBOD, and in a very mysterious way. And once I found OBOD and I signed up, and they said, oh, here are oracle decks, and the Druid Animal Oracle was there. I was like, that's the oracle that this man was reading to me out in the desert. And I still to this day wonder if he was an OBOD member or not. I haven't found him again. Okay. So I'm wondering if our paths will cross eventually. But
what lovely. Tina says, OBOD found me when I lost my best friend too. In grief, I felt it found me.
Yes.
Very nice.
It I guess on that note, just 2 years ago, I lost my father. And at that point, I had been in OBOD for about 2 years working through the Bardic studies. And, I hope I'm not giving anything away. We're taught to meditate and kind of, go into our other world. And in that grief that I was feeling on the day that my father had passed, I received a phone call from my brother who had been contacted by police, and we didn't know where he was.
Your dad was?
Yeah, he had. We live in the high desert. We have Pyramid Lake is a Paiute reservation lake that is just north of me, about 30 minutes. And that lake is a very sacred space. It is a very, I will tell you that as a white European male, I tend not to go there. I leave that for the natives, because a lot of people do not agree with me, but they go there and party out at the lake. But it is a sacred space. But before you get to that spot, there's some places where people will go shoot guns in the hills. Americans, we love guns. And so, so my dad was up shooting, and the next morning, the officers had found his vehicle burned. I hope I'm not getting too intimate, but his vehicle was burned and he was in it. We did not know this when they had contacted us. So But OBOD played such an integral part in that grief process for me that, but I wanted to mention this, that, so we didn't know where he was. I went to his house. I had to wait for detectives, and he had a big sycamore, American sycamore tree out in front of his house. And with the studies and the practices of meditation and being able to focus and kind of, go into ourselves, I sat down under his tree. I pushed away all the panic. I was surprised that I was able to do it because sometimes I get a bit emotional, but I pushed away the panic and the fear, and I just sat. I went into my grove and I said, Dad, if you've died, please appear to me and just tell me what happened. And he appeared in a blue mist. Later, I find out that sometimes the dead will appear to you in a blue mist. And he said, Trav, I've died. I don't know what happened. I'm really sorry. He didn't know what happened. And so I was really falling apart at that time until that moment. And it brought so much comfort in that moment to know that he wasn't in pain, to know that he wasn't, he had passed on, which is in itself its own grief, but that he wasn't being tortured or hurt or lost or, befuddled or something else was happening to him. And I credit OBOD with that, being able to sit and center myself and ground myself and be able to connect. As I'm sure a lot of us feel as we go on this path, I don't know, I'm a logistician. I'm a very left brain thinker, and very skeptical a lot of the times, even though I absolutely love the occult and love druidry. There's a lot of times I'm like, yeah, is it real? Is it, is this happening? And we get these little affirmations along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of those affirmations of, you're doing the right thing. You're on the right path. You get to connect with your loved ones at any time. And that's really when I started really in earnest. This is where I belong. This is my path. This helps me. This helps others. And I was able to, I still commune with my dad whenever I want. And I hear his voice in my ear, and it's not things I would say. So and during that time, it was in 2020 that we lost him. It was COVID. So we couldn't have a funeral. There was no, gathering, no feasting, no talking about him with friends and family, because they were all too afraid to gather at that time. So my brother and I were left in our grief with each other. And he had fished out at Pyramid Lake a lot. So he was cremated, and we had ashes, and we had one of the ashes was a water urn, which is just like a little envelope. And we went out to Pyramid Lake and were able to push that out into the water. And it takes like 50 minutes and then it sinks. So you're not spreading ashes everywhere. I hope that I did not disrespect any of the natives of that land. I hope that they weren't upset. But that's what we did. And we were able to finally have some closure with that. But yeah, it was thanks to following a spiritual path and finding a home that I didn't completely fall apart, and I had my own funeral for him. I created my own little rituals. I have I call it my meditation mound out back. It's a little stone circle I've made, and I went out back and I held my own funerals for him and whatnot. So
Wow.
with the inspiration that comes from the Awen and everywhere else, I was able to put something together for myself. And so yeah.
It's really moving. I mean, it's touching me here. And I suppose I can identify that my druidic practice helped me when Howard, my husband, died, being able to manage my grief, stay in connection with him, have a druidic funeral for him, all of that really, really important for me, that I could do that. And I had his funeral ceremony in the garden. That was just to have that. And I was very grateful it was pre-COVID, so we didn't have to miss all that piece. Angela says, I lost my mum at the beginning of March 2020. We couldn't have a proper funeral for her.
Sorry.
I still don't feel I accepted she is gone. I joined OBOD a couple of months after she died. I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope that you can come to some place of acceptance, Angela, all in its own time. Grief takes its own journey, and it's very, very important not to pathologize grief and to recognize we all have our own journey with it, and it takes the time it needs to take.
Absolutely.
Gabby says, "Oh, Travis, our hearts are with you with your very personal story about your father. What an incredible opening and connection, and still connecting. Thank you from our hearts with reminding us of what is possible across the liminal space. So very, very moving. Thank you." And then Philip says, "New story."
Yeah, absolutely. The I'm sorry, the first girl's name who had lost her mom in March, Angela. I think no druids have the exact same beliefs, but I very much ascribe to reincarnation and that there is a space beyond this. So I will tell you, I have found a lot of comfort in being able to continue to commune with my father and my spirit animal, Dakota, and engage them whenever I need them. I for many months, I'd say almost 2 years after my father's death, I constantly would feel him touching my shoulder behind me, and I knew that he was with me at that moment. And it helps. It helps to know that, at least for me, I feel I know that there is something beyond this, and that this is one iteration of existence that we've chosen to be here for a lesson or whatnot, and we can come back and they can come back, and that we are connected with our loved ones always. Really,
it's interesting. I'm a member of the Scientific and Medical Network. It's international, but it's based in the UK. And I watched at a webinar last night given by Professor Gary Schwartz. He's an American professor, and he has done incredible research. And he's written, you need to Google him because I can't do him. I don't remember the names. But he was talking about, he had a colleague, a woman. I don't know if her name was Maureen. I can't remember her name. But she was psychic, and she used to commune with spirits. I think she was a medium. Anyway, she died, and she still communicates with him. And they've been doing research where they work with her from the other side. So they talk about PMP, post-material persons. That's somebody who's passed over.
Okay.
ADC, after death communication. It's not just, they've studied, near-death experiences. And so the research they've done is they will communicate with her and say, will you bring so-and-so tonight? And they work with a medium who's also an artist. And this will be somebody they've worked with and somebody they knew. So it could be another scientist who's passed over. And the medium doesn't know who the person is, but she draws him or her.
No kidding.
And then they found a match. So it was various scientists, including Harry Houdini. And then they would have a series of questions that she would have to ask the PMP, who'd only know, and that person would only know the answer. And to verify that actually this is who it is. So there's no way that she could have known, even if she knew they were working with 10 scientists, she wouldn't know who was going to turn up. But they knew who was coming because of their colleague on the other side, who was bringing this other person to the medium.
That is fascinating.
This guy has done the research. He's talking about the title of the talk. I think this is paraphrasing it. Incredible statements require incredible evidence.
Wow.
So
absolutely, Gary Schwartz, you said.
Gary Schwartz.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I was just blown away by this. Absolutely.
It's nice to, I think a lot of us might feel this. I don't want to speak out of turn, but we see a lot of quantum physics, for example, catching up with a lot of the things that we've already known for centuries. Yeah. and dealt with for centuries. And for me, I actually like this. And I always said, like, science and magic were two sides of the same coin, but I actually like this analogy better, that it's different facets of the same rock. It's just another facet of the diamond, if you would. And but we see hard science is catching up to a lot of the things that we've known intrinsically and felt in our heart, like the running of energy through our bodies when we feel that, or we run energy, do the light body exercise, for example. Science is catching up. Oh no, there's actual physiological reaction to that when you do it. You see cells being, energized and maybe healed, or assisted with energy. So what a fascinating talk to be in, though.
Oh yeah.
And I have to giggle a little bit because always leave it to the scientists to come up with every acronym for everything that there might be. You know, we'll just use an acronym. We'll just put an acronym in
So
there.
PMP rather than
Yeah.
well, actually, are they still alive? And it's like, does consciousness continue after death? Which is, it raises this whole question. And I mean, you talk about your experience with your father. He's a conscious being. He's speaking to you consciously. So you know that from your own experience. And there are so many people who have had those wonderful experiences too. But people say that's your imagination. You're a bit of woo woo. And then now science comes in and validates what not everybody, but what a lot of people have experienced. How that fly is still at me. Pat suggested having a drink every time it comes near me. There've been few comments, but all I have is tea.
It's just he's just engaged in the talk. They want to join us. So.
Something Kale was on YouTube and he wanted to talk about a place where he was. I just wanted to acknowledge that after a series of events, losing both great-grandparents, grandfathers who encouraged connection with nature in their own ways, and some deeply personal drama, I found the order after listening to folk music on shuffle play when Dave the Bard popped up. I was so enthralled by the music, I had to know more and he led me to the path. You're very welcome, Kale. I know you were trying to put comments on YouTube and they wouldn't allow you for some strange reason. But anyway, you're on Facebook now. I just wanted to acknowledge him there, trying to express himself. But it is fascinating. And that's what's lovely about, well, in the world that I occupy and the world that you do, or part of the world you occupy, because you obviously, as a lawyer, you're in another world. But that so often, I didn't grow up like this because like you, I was brought up as a Roman Catholic. I know about saints and I know about praying to get ancestors out of purgatory and calling on saints to help you. So that's still what we do in terms of engaging with our ancestors. But to be able for people to share their experiences like that and find a home. Sulwen says, my question could sound weird. Well, this is the channel for weird. But I wonder if people on the other side actually can communicate with us, or maybe the psychic you were talking about was able to hear the thoughts of the living persons around her. I don't have any one theory. Yes. Now, that's a really, really good question because that was asked. And when they'd worked with that person, they assessed her for her ability to read another psychic's mind. And she couldn't. She was really, really bad. Much, much better at answering accurate questions that she did not know the answer to that other people do. So I think I think it's an important question that you ask, but that they actually could verify no, because she wasn't particularly good. And that they found that some mediums are not really good at reading or engaging with the thoughts of somebody beside them or in another room on this side, but that it's from the other side that they do, and that they were able to verify that they were able to verify it. Gabby says, do you have a photo of Dakota that you'd like to share with us?
I could grab one if you don't mind me popping out for 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll just read some comments here. Ferdy says, we ex-Catholics make great druids and ceremonial magics. Maybe the robes. I think you're right. I remember being on a retreat in a place that was run by a religious order, and in the sacristy, the room beside there was a chapel in the place, and there was the alb, and it looked just like a druid's robe. So maybe. And Wayne says, it's an amazing subject. There's an ongoing discussion about time entanglements, and I feel this is also a connection to the other worlds. Anyway, back to
okay. So this is a black and white of Dakota.
Is that you?
Yes, this is me when I was in law school. Actually, I used to have glasses because I got LASIK surgery done, and so I got rid of the glasses. But
so different.
yeah, and so he had a sparkling blue eyes and a wonderful dog, an amazing dog. But I have this discussion of hearing and being able to answer questions from people who've passed on. It's not limited, in my opinion, to people. So one of the things that the OM is a lovely focus, and one of my own personal pilgrimages has been to sit with each one of the OM trees if I can find them. We don't have them all in America, so I do have to travel other places to find. I'm still on this. It's been a 4-year, 5-year pilgrimage still, but I will sit with a tree that I know nothing about, nothing in the the magical realm about, and it will tell me about itself, and it will say, hey, look, this tree or this. Here's a perfect example. I hope I'm not giving away, but in Glastonbury, we had the Bardic Circle this past summer gathering, and Christopher Hughes did an amazing. We brewed the Awen, right? He found 13 different plants of the area, and we brewed the Awen. Cleavers are not a plant that we have in the West. I think they're up in Seattle or up towards the wet country, but I had never seen this plant in my life, ever. And I'm like, okay. So I'm in the circle with cleavers, and we sit and we meditate, and I ask, okay, well, what are you about? What do you do? And I'm all internally, and I get impressions, and people, oh, it's your imagination. But the impression I got was, this is a plant for detoxing your liver, your kidney, and whatnot. Yes. The next day, I go to the Star Child shop, and I think Gabby was actually there. You were actually getting some, I think you had a bad headache, and you were getting some feverfew. And the lady mentioned cleavers, and I go, oh, what is that for? And she says, oh, it's a detox. I'm like, no kidding. So there's these studies with native tribes. I think these are happening in Florida, North Carolina area. I could be wrong on that, but where a tribal medicine man or woman is given a plant that they've never seen before, and they know how to accurately use it in medicines and in spirit walks and shamanistic practices, without anyone telling them how that operates. So not only does this operate with people, loved ones that we've passed on, or in my case, my spirit animal as well, but it happens with stones, with crystals, with herbs, with plants, that anything. I'm an animist, so I do find that everything has some kind of spirit. And for me, I keep getting those affirmations. I just sat with blackthorn, for example, heather. I just sat with some heather twigs, and it told me all kinds of things about itself. And I went to a book later and look it up, and sure, there it is. I'm like, oh, I've never studied this plant, and here's what it, here's its properties, here's its magical properties, here's its associations. And I journaled it before I went to the book, so I could confirm for myself. As a lawyer and as an American too, I don't know. I think it might be a little bit different in the Isles, but here, the woo-woo, as you mentioned earlier, is really looked down upon and frowned upon. It is not given much credence at all. It's kind of funny because everyone has their own little things that they do, knocking 3 times on wood, or throwing salt over their shoulder or whatnot, and they all have little things their parents taught them, but they'll never associate that with being woo-woo, and it's looked down upon. So when someone, especially in my profession, and maybe you've experienced in your profession as well, starts going down this path, our colleagues look at us as, are you completely crazy? Are you, what's going on? And it's hard to express that, no, I'm not crazy. Like, I actually have these, it's experiential. I like to say I don't have beliefs, I have experiences, and then I have ideas, because ideas, I think you even mentioned this in the last, your last guest on the Fireside Chat. She was talking about beliefs and how those you can get ingrained in a belief. There's a wonderful film called Dogma from the late 90s. Alanis Morissette was in it. Ben Affleck was in it. Matt Damon was in it. Really, really funny. And Chris Rock is in it. At the end, he says, it's easier to have ideas than beliefs, because your ideas can be changed, and they can change, and they can be fluid with you. So I like that a lot, and I adopted that. I have these ideas about what may or may not happen, and then they can change, and they can be, different facts can come in and change your analysis.
Absolutely.
But I do find that there is a lot of truth to what we do, and there's a lot of truth to what we experience, everyone in their own right. And I never like to poo-poo anyone else's experience, because there's truth in it. There's things that happen.
Well, you see, our experience, whatever it is, you experience love. And I can't measure. I mean, if I'm saying, well, science, we cannot validate anything unless it's measurable. You can't measure love. I mean, do I love you more than you love me?
Yeah.
How do I know you love? I might infer it from your smiling or the way you look at the person, at the object of your love, but I won't know to what degree you love them. And it's like I have to rely on your, I suppose, your actions, but also on your experience if you describe it. And people often say to me, "Do you believe in God?" And I go, "It's not what I believe; it's what I know, and this is what I experience."
What I've experienced. It's not even I don't know if there's an almighty one deity, but I can tell you I've experienced individual deities, ones that that I wanted to connect with and talk with, and as a white European in a native land that is not technically my own, there are I love the Celtic deities. I love the Welsh deities. I love the stories, and I do connect with those. But there's it's experiencing that spirit of place, the genus loci, and the your own path. Experiencing your own path it's palpable. It's there. It doesn't have to be scientifically quantifiable.
No, and Paula makes it good. What someone's magic is someone else's science. What someone's science is someone else's magic. She says, "I'm new to the order and loving my new adventure." It's lovely to hear that, Paula. And then Sean says, "This is all so inspiring and reassuring, both as a spiritual person and a scientist."
Oh yes, yeah. As a scientist, there is the scientific method, and there is a formula for this. But we also know that light is both a particle and a light wave, depending upon the observer, which is mind-blowing to me. That's mind-blowing that a particle might have enough sentience to change itself depending upon the observer, or maybe there's something else going on there. I don't know, but it's fascinating stuff.
What we need is humility.
Yes.
Sandy says, "My father passed over a couple of weeks ago. Sorry to hear that, Sandy. I felt he was still around and lots of strange things happening at 4 a.m. I found out that was the time he was given his last injection, and also his brothers said goodbye at that time." I went to see a fellow druid, kept getting messages to connect with him. I'm usually the one people call to do the connection, so it was very strange to be on the side of this experience. I hope that connection was I imagine it was a beautiful one for you, Sandy. It's just lovely.
And from me to you, I don't think it stops. I will tell you, anytime I feel I need my dad around, hey Dad, and we're having a conversation, and I will tell you that it's his personality and things I would never imagine him saying had he said to me. So I'll reiterate that. But
yeah, and it's precious to be able to have that connection. I mean, I know when Howard people say, "Oh, but it'll be great for you now. You'll have great connections," and I'm thinking, well, it's not for you to say, but I still miss the physical presence. So
absolutely,
but for me, that's reassuring is that they're not gone completely. That they're not getting into a vacuum or into a nothingness, or
even that you have the promise and the hope of being with them again. That you get to connect again in a different form, but being on the same plane again. At least that's what I hope. That is an idea that I hold. So,
well, and nobody can dispute that. It's that's what you hold, and that's what sustains you and supports you and holds you. And none of us can say that's not going to happen. I mean, I would too concur with that and hope that is the case. Vivian says, "My grandmother had a wonderful knowledge of plants, and when I was out walking some years ago, I saw a little plant and wondered what it was. I heard a voice in my head saying Speedwell." Oh, Veronica. Yeah. When I got home, I checked in my wildflower book, and it was. Isn't that beautiful?
And those are the little moments of confirmation that unfortunately we humans need.
Yes.
And it's easy to we have them, and it's almost addictive. We want another one, and we want another one. But and so we stay on this path to have our continued experiences.
Oh, lovely. So there's to paraphrase. This is from Ferdiet. To paraphrase Terry Pratchett, people have to believe in magic, or what's the point? Absolutely. And I can't remember the quotation from Einstein about imagination. Sorry, that's not magic, imagination, but they're very, very close. So,
but they're linked. Absolutely.
And Kale, this has come back again. I can say that in the 13 years I was forced to worship one God, I never experienced his love. But in the 5 years I pretended to worship that God while actually worshipping many Celtic gods, I had a much happier life. Of course, now being openly pagan, I'm much better off than ever before. Absolutely. If you can be open, then you're not hiding. And then it's just, much ease.
That raises an interesting point too, because for the first several years, and even after, so when my father passed and I had that experience, I didn't share that with anybody. I couldn't share that with anybody. They would think I'm completely crazy. So I kept that inside. It's only been since spring of this year that I've come out of the broom closet, so to say, and I've just been, you know what, this is a path I follow. You can think whatever you want to about me, but I have felt so alive with it and so fulfilled by it, and just like you said, magic brings a color to this world. It's as if the world were a black and white painting until you add magic to it, and that adds the color and the inspiration of the imagination. Absolutely. So it's nice to be able to be open and be out of the broom closet, so to say, to be an open pagan. Something that I will tell you that a lot of Americans are really, I think, starting to experience. I just saw a magazine on a shelf the other day. It was just witches.
Wow.
The ancient origins and modern movement, and it was just a magazine in our local. It's called Whole Foods, so it's a big grocery store owned by Amazon now, and for that to be in mainstream culture at the moment is really new and novel for the US, I think, or at least the Western.
It's something that I've only begun to appreciate since in the last few years, how difficult it is for so many of our members in the US, because so many people have said, keep the online stuff going.
Yes.
My only contact, I've never met another OBOD member. I can't tell anyone. I can't tell my family. I could lose my job. And I grew up in a very, very conservative Roman Catholic country in the past, where it was ruled by the church, and no longer is, where there was censorship. And now I've never had to hide what I do to anybody. I've taught in a seminary for 27 years with religious nuns and priests. Nobody has ever challenged me. So I'm really, really grateful for the safe place where I have, and for in the US, my heart goes out to people who can't, and hopefully that's a good sign, having that magazine in that shop, that gradually people can come out in a safe place to be able to share spiritual views. We're not talking about evil, we're talking about just a pagan worldview.
Just being able to connect with our own form of deity and not be locked into one ideal system or what they consider an ideal system. It's like one form of thinking, and if we don't all ascribe to it, we're it's, oh, that's scary, that's weird, that's out there. But yeah, no, I remember when we were in Glastonbury and you gave your address when you formally took on the mantle of chosen chief, and said, I'm not going to change things. I'm going to continue on with the online presence, because I think these fireside chats are brilliant. We get to meet other members throughout the world and see how they practice, or get to know them a little bit, and know that we aren't alone, even though if we feel maybe in our physical locality we're alone, we really aren't. It is a matter, if we're able to meet on the spiritual plane with other passed on loved ones, plants, rocks, we can do it with ourselves as well.
Yes, indeed.
And so we can have that community.
Wonderful. Just to get back to Sandy, whose dad passed, because she said, yes, it worked. He hadn't accepted that he passed over, so we helped him. But that is really, really important work. Yes. To be able to help, because obviously in your dad's case, his passing was easy, even though he didn't know what had happened, but he was okay.
He didn't know. Yeah.
Where with Sandy's dad, it was harder for him. And so beautiful to be able to help people pass over. It's really, really sacred work.
Absolutely. And it's healing for our own hearts. We need it as well as they do.
Absolutely. And there's so many people. There's Teresa, Stephanie, whose parent or dad, brother passed over, and they're still feeling their presence or communicating. There's a message from Patty to you.
Hi,
Just
Patty.
Thank you so much for the last minute multiple parts that you took in, or the last minute multiple parts that you took in the rituals at the Torah in Avery. There were so many people with challenges, with flight delays and health issues. And there you were with your acting background. You were heaven sent.
So I want to say thank you to Patty and Gabby and to yourself and everyone. It was a dream come true to be able to go to Glastonbury for the first time. It was a trip that got canceled in 2019. It was 2020 that we had the first one canceled, right? I had gotten the ticket to the summer gathering, booked a flight over, and it was canceled, and it was canceled again. And to be able to go over and then have the opportunity to join in such beautifully written rituals, by the way, those were really, I loved those rituals. I've kept the scripts. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate. For anyone else that's listening, so when I got to go to Glastonbury, there was a ritual on the tour, and then I went to Avebury Circle the next morning and we did a ritual there. And some of the members, couldn't make it or weren't there or just couldn't do it that morning. And I was asked to step in, and a lot of the verbiage is the same as we use in the OBOD packets and whatnot. And I do them. I love to do them at the quarter festivals and at the fire festivals throughout the year, the cross quarter festivals. And so you get to learn the script. And I was like, great, I got this. I will do this for you. I would love to do this for you. And I get lead you in to light the central fire. And I was just gushing. I was so over the moon. It was one of the most magical events, most magical trips I've ever taken, to go to Glastonbury and experience that. So Patty and Gabby, thank you both very, very much. I still connect with them. I was just talking to Gabby the other day, and you meet lifelong friendships at those events, and you get to carry them with you. So
it was a particularly magical one, and I think amplified by the fact that we hadn't had a gathering for 2.5 years. And just to get back, because obviously the online connections are wonderful, but to be able to go and hug somebody and
yes,
to stand beside them and sit with people and look at them eye to eye, and the atmosphere in the marquee in the Abbey was electric. So
electric
in the tour, so it was just beautiful. I was
standing on the tour with, I don't know, I'm guessing 200 other
people, probably 400.
In their ritual garb and mostly white robes or off-white robes, it was an experience that I definitely hope I get to do again. I'll put it that way. It was something it's a beautiful community that we all have. I want to impart that to everybody. This is a beautiful community of people. So
yes,
we are lucky.
Great. Now there's and to go back to, because it's Paiute or Paiute?
Paiute, yeah. So there's the the land that I live on is actually part of the Washishu tribe. Okay. Washoe County is our county. So Nevada is the state. We are broken up into counties, and then we have cities, municipalities in those counties. And so I am in Washoe County. Washoe County is kind of a sliver up the western side of the state, and that's named after the Washishu tribe. We have the Shoshone tribe and the Paiute tribe. And so they didn't occupy necessarily the exact same space, but they were, either neighbors or maybe some overlap. And so the Burning Man event happens at the Black Rock Desert, which is sacred land to the Paiute tribe. Pyramid Lake is sacred to the Paiute tribe. Lake Tahoe, which some of you may have been to or know about, that was the Washoe tribe. And then the Shoshone, I think, were to the east of us a bit. But we have these different tribes who had occupied the area. And when I connect to the genus loci of this area, and I think, Christopher Hughes does a brilliant job of explaining, why it's important to connect to the spirit of your own land in some of his books. And after having read that, I sat down and I sit on a wetland back here. It's a man-made wetland. There's a creek that happened because of farmers up north. But you can feel that there are a lot of the tribal elders are opening up their sacred practices to to the white Europeans who've occupied the land, not so much maybe out of desire, but out of necessity, because the tribes are dwindling, their native speakers are dwindling, and they don't want their practices to be lost in obscurity, right? And so I have a friend, Jill, actually, I'll give you a shout out. She has been studying with doing some shamanic studies, and she was taught some of the traditional, I think, Washoe tribe songs. And when you sing these songs in a group of people, you feel the land respond to you. It's like, oh, hey, I know that language. I know what you're singing to me. And so, you know, as we have these different tribes around the area, with all reverence and you know, respect to them, try to honor them, try to give, you know, offerings. I won't encroach on their practices per se. I would give an offering of vervain maybe versus an offering of tobacco, but also tobacco if I have it. To say, I honor you, you know, I hope that I can do right by the spirits of this land by cleaning up, by honoring you, by recognizing that you're there. And I will tell you that in my little back wetland out here, there are some palpable spirits along the way, and there's more lushness in those areas where you can feel the genus loci of the area really kind of focused. We do have actual sacred sites. Unfortunately, the Washoe sacred site up at Lake Tahoe is called Cave Rock, and what happened is that we just bulldozed right through it, and it's now a road. It's now the highway that goes around Lake Tahoe, and that was a sacred spot, as I understand it, for the Washoe tribe, and it's been bulldozed through. So you can't really stop and go into the cave. You you drive through the cave, but people are driving 50, 60 miles an hour, and you could die if you go sit in there. But there are other spots throughout the state that I'm still exploring. One of those being the Black Rock Desert. There is a palpable spirit of that place. That
so come back to you. And
yeah.
Are there any Paiute left? And how do they feel?
Yes, absolutely.
In place on their land?
I this year, actually, it's interesting you bring that up, because I hadn't heard anything from the tribe or heard news reports from the tribe. They've been, you know, relegated to reservations, which is its own, you know, background and horrible in my opinion. But they have the Paiute reservation, which is just on the east side of Pyramid Lake. When you go to the Black Rock Desert and go to the Burning Man Festival, you have to go through their reservation. You skirt around the outside of it. One of the things of Black Rock City, which is what Burning Man is called at that time, is that it's a city. And the idea was you have the man in the middle, a clock is made around the outside, and then you have a temple, because every good city has a place of worship. And so the temple is an art project every year. An artist is commissioned to do it, and it's always different. It's burned on the 7th day. It is absolutely stunning, and it has a lot of spirit to it. But what the purpose of the temple is that you would take out letters, pictures. People were taking out ashes to the temple, and then it would be burned down. And just this year, the Paiute tribe asked us to stop bringing out the ashes of our dead loved ones because it was angering their ancestors.
Okay.
So there is a rub. It is not, you know, the event has a lot of beauty to it. A lot of that ethos has changed over the years, but it's still there. But it does have it's a party in the desert aspect to it as well. You know, there's a lot of that going on. The temple itself is reverent. When you go into it, I will tell you that I went to Italy in 2007 and just kind of, you know, toured around the country and went to a lot of different churches. And having been raised Roman Catholic, it's like, oh yeah, this is, you know, the cathedral. Here's, you know, the Vatican City and all these things are really, really impressive. But you feel more palpable spirit in the temple at Black Rock City than I did at any of these churches, because it wasn't glitz and glam. It was, hey, look, there's a picture of someone's past loved one. There's their animal. There's their parent. There's their best friend, their sister, their brother, whatever it is, and people are quiet and respectful in that space. But there is a rub with the native tribes in being respectful to their practices and their ancestors as well. And I hope that it was, I don't know for certain, because people will probably violate the rule, but this was the first year that I had heard, hey, don't bring out the ashes of your dead loved ones. So I wrote a letter to my dad and stapled it on the temple, and then that was burned on the last day. I did not stay to watch it burn, but I know it was there. So, okay. But yes, there is. There definitely is. It's it's a hard relationship with the European settlers and the native tribes because of the way that it went down and the way that it occurred. And I take a lot of responsibility on my end for being a modern Druid to say, I want to help repair some of that to the best degree that I can by respecting their wishes, by respecting their boundaries, by respecting, what they've asked us to respect. So I wish more people would do that, but there's a lot of people who just aren't spiritual or aren't paying attention. I think people generally want to be good, but they're just not paying attention. And so I don't know how I think that overall, I think that the tribe, if they don't maybe like the event, it helps supply economy to them. So as the burners come through, they stop at their shops, they do these wonderful things called Indian tacos. If you've never had an Indian taco, they are brilliant. It's a fry bread with ground beef in it and lettuce and tomato and onions, and it's just, it's so good, tasty. And they'll make that, and burners will stop along the freeway to go in and buy their food and stop at their stores and stuff, and hopefully bring some economy to them. But believe me, we could do more. I'll put it that way. More can be done. But but I do think that there's some help there. So I try to find silver linings. I try to be an optimist to some degree.
Bless you. Zane has a question. Does that set up special, you may have already answered it, set up special challenges when you have ancestral connections to certain sacredness and yet are part of a land unceded by the first peoples in the US? I feel like a part of both and yet not entirely one or the other. My ancestors left Ireland in 1624 and the UK in 1648.
I do feel that there is I don't know if I want to call it a conflict, but there is my female ancestor, I'm kind of, I guess, a weird anomaly. Some other people can do this too. I can't really trace my male lineage. I can trace my female lineage. And when I went back, what's that?
That's the Italian side.
Well, and my Scottish English side. Okay. Actually, yeah, and you're right. On both sides, I can really only trace the female lineage, which is just interesting to me. It's a weird thing to, so I bounce around with names. But when I went to England and I came back, I had a reading done by a voodoo priest, a Hungan, and he said, "Hey, your female ancestors are calling you back to England." And I was like, "No kidding! How did you know that?" No one really knows that I can only trace my female lineage, but I do feel this this pull towards the lands that my ancestors came from versus the lands that I was born on. I love Reno, Nevada. I think it's a gorgeous area, although right now we're in the midst of a wildfire and we've been stuck under smoke for about a week and a half. So it's oppressive. I will say that it's not awesome, but it is a beautiful part of the world, and there is a lot of spirit here. And yeah, there is a bit of a rub with where do you belong, but at the same time, I think you belong wherever your heart is. And if my heart is, part in England and part here and part in Italy and part in Scotland, that's fine. You can find space in each one of those places as long as you're respectful and courteous to the spirits and the people that you're around. So
it's a very complex because it's like the land can't be given back to whom, etc. It's very, very complex. So,
and I think the land also, but I also think the land appreciates when it's recognized and when the genus loci are engaged again, and when they are in essence worshipped again, it almost, oh, thank you for hearing me here. I'm here. People ignore me, but I'm here. And so it's nice. I think there's an appreciation mutually that can be given on both our side and the side of the land and the spirit, by just honoring it and just being present and engaged and respectful.
Absolutely. Okay, so Julia says, I'm still in the broom closet mainly because no one has asked and I see no need to share. That's an interesting one.
I was the same, I will tell you that, but it did get, it got to the point where, for example, I had to explain to my office why I wasn't going to be here today. I should be at work right now. And I was like, well, funny story. So I'm a part of this order and I'm going to go be interviewed for a little while and chat and just, have a good moment with people from around the world. And so it comes up, and I think being able to be honest about it is very liberating and very freeing when we are able to.
And this person took it okay.
Yeah, it's my I call them my work family. It's my paralegal, my direct, my right hand, and the other lawyers in the office. And so I just at this point I share with them freely, but it's taken years for me to kind of get there. It was not an overnight process. It came to the point where I was just like, look, I'm just tired of maybe making misrepresentations to you of what I'm about to go do, or when my dad died, being able to open up that I got to experience him on the other side, and that, when maybe they've gone through their own tragedy, and say, hey, look, from me to you, I think you're not alone. And being able to comfort others, because that's what this path does, right? I think when we were in Glastonbury and Chris was giving one of his talks, he was saying, one of our jobs as bards is to inspire others, is to bring the awe into others. That is part of the spirit that we inhabit. And so sometimes it takes a while, and I hope that someday you won't have any issues coming out of the broom closet, as it were, because there are others that believe the same and think the same and want to hear more about it, and have just not felt that safe space to open up to somebody else about it. But once you start talking about it, they open up with you.
That's true.
We really aren't in a minority. I will tell you that. We really are not.
There are lots of bulging closets. Siduri 9 can't be very open in Texas where I live, but that is lovely to hear about Nevada. So hopefully someday. Now it's interesting. Pat Booker, in some news stories from the US about Christian evangelicals starting to protest pagan events.
Yeah, not just pagan events, but pagan monuments. There was a monument, I think it's in North Carolina, and it's basically like 3 of the trilithons from Stonehenge that we had erected, and then there was a bunch of beautiful poems on them, I believe, and just hearkening to the pagan paths. It was blown up. They literally took dynamite to it and blew it up. America is going through a very tough cultural time at the moment. The dominant religion feels that it's being attacked and there's a war against it. I personally do not agree with that. I don't believe there's a war against it. I believe that, when you've been the dominant religion and now other people are trying to occupy part of that field, they're reeling from that. But yes, there is a lot of the more staunch sects of the Christian path, I guess, have gotten a bit violent, unfortunately. And it's, I'm sure all of you have seen the news. America has taken 50 steps back, to like the 1950s recently, with some of the rulings from our Supreme Court and some of the other freedoms that are on the chopping block, based on this ideology of, it should be the way it was, and the way it was meant for a very limited few people. But that's comforting, and that's what they know, and change is difficult. And so we see a lot of, at least in my opinion, we see a lot of acting out. We see a lot of violence, unfortunately, which is surprising to me, having grown up here. And growing up in Nevada is a very interesting place. We are actually very progressive. We're progressive on LGBTQ rights, on interracial rights, and female rights. We have traditional values, but we also are like, but come eat at our table. It's fine. We don't,
Yeah.
Nevada's it's a really interesting, it's a lot like Texas, but a lot like California in this really interesting little melting pot. But so growing up here, I thought the world was love and peace and we were all getting along. And then in the last couple of years, especially, it has been a very hard reality check to know that, for example, this is so controversial, apparently, that Disney just put out The Little Mermaid. They're going to do a live action, and it's a Black girl, African-American girl, who is going to be Ariel. And the negative response is overwhelming, and it's very saddening to be like, what's the problem? I'm sure she has an amazing voice, and that's what we really came to hear. We want to hear the music, right? We want to hear that.
The story is about her voice that she has to give away. I mean,
right. So America is going through this cultural shift, and we hope that it will be fine and that we will come out of this stronger for it. We, honestly, we do not know, but those of us who do have that open heart, we just have to keep doing that and just try to, remain open and on our path. And that's, and tying it back to Drudy, that's what's so beautiful about the OBOD path, is that it is this way, and this is what we believe, and this is what we have to do. It is so open and freeing, and you get to learn about everybody's different takes on the way that we incorporate. I think you even had, he was a Christian Druid on a few Fireside Chats ago.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah. And even he was in a part of his sect of Christianity was even frowned upon by other Christians because it wasn't so conforming to the rest. And but it's that teamwork, it's that coming together of different ideas that make us stronger and better. So personally, in my mind, I think we've seen a huge influx of people over COVID come to OBOD, and that's only going to grow, just because it's so open and welcoming to everybody.
And the funny thing is, when you were talking about some Christian groups feeling they're being attacked by other groups, the thing is about, well, certainly, I don't know about, mostly, I don't think pagans are evangelical at all. They're not interested, and certainly not Druids and not members of our order are not interested in collecting souls or proselytizing. It's no, this is what we do, and certainly within OBOD, you can be a Christian and a Druid, so it doesn't matter. And I think that's the sad bit, that is that narrative, we're being attacked, when it's like, no, you're not. No one is stopping you from practicing your religion.
No, yeah. That's the misconception, is that their traditions and culture is being taken away. No one's doing that to you. They're just asking for their own space to do their own thing
in their own place. They're not asking to hire a session to have a few hours on a Sunday in the local.
Yeah, right.
Because they want to have wherever they want them. So it's not as even they have to share the space with anybody.
Right. But growing up as I came out when I was 15, so growing up as a gay kid, a lot of people were talking about tolerance, and one person said to me, no, tolerance isn't enough. We need to accept that others exist. I don't want to just tolerate you.
Yeah.
We need to accept that these other people are here and have a valid presence and are allowed to be.
And that they're not a threat.
And not a threat. It's not a threat. Especially in my area, we have, there's a big prejudice against the Latino cultures and whatnot. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We have tacos. Everyone loves tacos. Calm down. Like, let's just all hang out and break bread together. It's going to be great. We can learn new things, and we can adopt portions that we like, So anyway, I digress. I got on a bit of a soapbox, but it's hard. I will say it's hard to be an American at the moment. It is hard. We are walking on eggshells. Every time we go out into public, we are, a political belief is not necessarily worn on your shoulder, although a lot of people are wearing it on hats or whatever else these days. But we are cautious now with almost any topic, because the topics have been so polarized. And, as Druids, we don't just see duality. There's a third option, a fourth option, a fifth option. But America's been so polarized that if you say you support the environment, well, then you must think, along this line, and you must be this and this and this, and therefore I'm going to, yell and scream at you. My neighbor, my wonderful little neighbor, Nancy from Ohio, was walking down the street the other day, and she had a mask on simply because she had been inside. It's been smoky, and she had her arms full, and she was walking out. This was in downtown Reno, and then she couldn't take her mask off. Someone stopped, rolled down the window, and started screaming at her, what's wrong with the nation? And she's just wearing a mask. It does not, so it's I don't know if it's the same over there. When I was in England, I was actually there for the Queen's Jubilee. It was happening over the same weekend. And it did not seem so polarized. I know that a lot of the world is polarized at the moment. It's not just a uniquely American thing, but we do seem to feel it very acutely at the moment. So it's a very interesting time to be in this country and try to manage that on a daily basis. And that's one of the reasons a lot of us hide in the closet, because it's also, our beliefs are tied to a political party now, because evangelicals and Christians are one party, the Republican Party, and then Democrats are everything else. And so it's this really, and that's not true. That's not how that works. There's, there's bleed over everywhere. But it does make it almost dangerous from time to time for us to say anything other than what is mainstream or what is safe. It's when I got back from Glastonbury, 31 white supremacists were arrested in Idaho at Idaho Gay Pride. They were going to incite a riot and begin violently attacking people. And one Good Samaritan, and we don't know what affiliation they ascribed to, saw a bunch of dudes in militant outfits getting out of a truck. And I want to make sure that I'm clear, because they were not from Idaho. I think only one of them was from Idaho. The rest were from around the nation. And they were going to incite violence at a gay pride event. They just didn't have to go. They didn't need to go force their ideas on others. So it's a really scary time. But it's looking at it from an anthropological, standpoint, it's a very interesting time. What is going on? What are fueling these rages? White supremacy is on the rise, and it's very disheartening, because I didn't grow up that way. I grew up with Captain Planet and everyone getting along and combining their powers together to make a better world. And to see the factioning off right now is a bit disheartening, and it can get very oppressive. But that's when I turn back to I don't like calling myself a leader. I just help facilitate a small seed group here. We actually have a good dosage of OBOD members in Reno, Nevada. And so we've started a little seed group, and we try to gather on the festival days and talk otherwise. And I have a little Facebook group. So we turn back to those things to help assuage some of that real world angst and anger that we're seeing out there. So again, this path really is super fulfilling. It's a wonderful way to connect online and to be able to connect throughout the world and see that we're not alone.
Absolutely. And this is Gordon. It's a great sharing experience with community, these fireside chats. And Ferdy, it says our ancient or very early modern Druid ancestors would definitely have used the internet if they had it. I really value the new dimensions these communities are opening up for us all. And thank you for Eimear, for all and all who make it possible. Yeah, I mean, and you too, Ferdy, contributed to this. It's that we all make this. I can't do this on my own. It's the guests and also the viewers who add to the conversation. Philip says many people who don't want to connect to magic, mediumship, spirituality because they're frightened by the concept that it's evil. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a dogma, a belief that is held over, and it's not true. And I believe it's born out of ignorance and fear. And having grown up as a gay man, and I've dealt with a lot of ignorance and fear, but it's super funny because you've watched the evolution of people being afraid of the LGBTQ plus community. And as they know someone in their family and they learn them, they lose that fear. Same with the spiritual community. I don't know if any of you have seen, but Teresa Caputo, she's a spiritualist medium. She's kind of built a celebrity around that. She is a talented medium. She came to Reno and did a big show. She basically she got up on stage, and then she got down into the audience, and she just started doing her mediumship and connecting with people's dead loved ones and being able to recount, just like the medium you were talking about with Gary Schwartz, things that she could never know. When people have firsthand experience with it and they lose that ignorance and fear, it starts to go away. Coming back again to our bardism, when I was coming out of the broom closet, one of the things I did, so I go to this, it's called the Family Law Conference, and we go every year down to Bishop, California, which is a little bit south of us, about 2 hours south. And is that right? 2 hours? Anyway, but we go down there and we all break bread together as lawyers to try not to, kill each other in the courtroom type of thing. And I was riding back with two friends, and I was like, it's a long car ride. So I was like, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story of the Lady Ragnell. And
Brilliant.
I retold that story to them, and they're like, that's really cool. Why did you tell us that? And I'm like, well, it's part of something that I'm, a spiritual path I'm kind of embarking on, and just sharing, mythology from different parts of the world. And so being able to, to present those things and ideas to others, I think will help reduce some of the idea. I even saw this posted on the Facebook page, the OBOD Facebook page. Someone said they were afraid to engage, I think it was the sacred grove, or do the initiation because of, what are the evil powers that could come in. An assumption is that evil powers would come in, but it's not necessarily the fact. Yes, there is evil out in the world. Yes, it does exist. Or maybe it doesn't to some people's view. Maybe they don't believe in evil. Maybe it's just differing shades of gray, instead of just black and white. But it's not inherent. It's not inherent in the things that we do.
I also think you need to trust, and I suppose this has been a real challenge in the last 2 years, how much faith do you put in your own body's ability to fend off infection?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a very strong belief in my body. Born out by experience, mind you. It is not an irrational belief, but that, I tend not to worry about my health. So if you've got a cold and you're beside me, I'm not going to worry that I'm going to pick something up from you. Or if I do, it'll be minor. But that's how I trust. And I do whatever I can to stay healthy. I'm no saint, but I am mindful. Then I sometimes eat too much, sometimes not exercise enough, etc., etc.
But we try to eat our vegetables, and we try to, and take a bit of, I don't either. I take a bit of exercise where I can. I haven't in a while, but
but I do the best I can, and I would just consider myself healthy.
Well, and on that,
and I have a confidence in that. And just to come back to this thing about somebody afraid that maybe if I open myself up, that these evil powers will come, or these evil forces will come in. Also, spiritually and psychically, we need to make ourselves psychically strong, and to have a trust in our own ability that we won't, or that if there's anything around us, that we're not going to bring it in, that somehow we're able to, I use prayers of protection, not in a paranoid way, but it's just like, I use a seatbelt. I look, in the mirror when I'm driving, just to make sure I'm driving safely, but not in a frightened way. So, and like when I started driving first, I was terrified that how can anyone go on a road with cars and all of that stuff? And now, because I've learned how to drive safely, and I think it's when you go into your sacred grove is to be in there with a guide and trusting and not engaging with, no one else is allowed in there, and you can make that set that intention. This is my sacred grove, and only I go in here, unless maybe a guide will come with me who is going to help me, etc. And it's about learning that, to trust that you have that ability, not to have it come to you. Now, and likewise, I sometimes get sick, and that might be the same, but that I have the tools to heal myself if I am sick. Likewise.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up too. I just finished reading Psychic Self-Defense by Dion Fortune, and she mentions very poignantly that our auric field is a natural barrier against evil things or dark things or negative things coming in. Doing the light body exercise, having that intention, helps reinforce that field, in my opinion. And I trust, I'll generally leave the house with some kind of, I have quartz on today, some kind of stone that I've enchanted or made a talisman of some kind. But if I didn't, I would do a simple visualization to say, all right, I'm going to keep, light around me today. I'm going to keep a hexagonal shape around me today, or maybe a sound wave around me today, that will help block out some of the, when people are yelling at you and spewing anger at you, they're spewing negativity, and to help keep that off. But I trust that I don't have to always consciously think of it, that it is there. I trust my auric body. I trust my physical body.
Yeah, and it isn't just it's not evil forces necessarily. It's somebody draining you. It's that. It's just normal psychic muck that goes around that isn't necessarily evil. It's just a bit like keeping yourself clean and not drinking out of a dirty cup. It's washing it before you use it, or whatever, or washing your apples before you eat them. It's that kind of thing that it's all.
And I would say trust the path. The tools are in the path. They've been given to us. Doing the light body exercise is exactly that, is bringing light in and filling yourself up with light as a protective measure, and as a healing measure. And
it's your light body is always there.
Always.
So what you're doing is raising your awareness of it. So that's what strengthens you, is being aware of it.
And running that energy through. And then you get that beautiful, I don't know, I'm sure others feel this beautiful euphoric feeling inside of, oh, I feel good. I feel jazzy, because you've drawn awareness to that spirit that I think we've been talking about carries on.
That's right.
It's there. It's there to protect us and be there. I very much ascribe to the idea that there is a Summerland, if you will, or a place that we go to after. I do not believe in a hell. I don't think that there is an eternal damnation that we go to. It doesn't make sense to me. The world seems cyclical. We're on a cyclical pattern in the universe. We're in a cyclical pattern in our solar system, and being able to reincarnate and go through these other areas, it just feels like there's truth in our spirit body. It's there to protect us. Try not to dwell too much on the negativity, or that's when it would possibly break through and come in. So look to the light, I guess, as we could say.
Exactly. So Julie says, as one not used to religious practice, I find ritual very difficult. Whether I'm trying to do something alone or as part of a group, it just makes me feel uncomfortable. Not as scared of what might happen with it, just that my brain tries to distance itself from it, as if I have no right to be there to do that. And I suppose for me, originally, having come from a very ritualistic religious background, I, for a long time, just went away from ritual. I was very, very uncomfortable with it. And now I've actually, I suppose, come back to it. I think it's about doing what the smallest thing that you can be comfortable with, if it's focusing on your breath. So like taking the 3 breaths, earth, sky, and sea, that might be somewhere to start, and saying the Druid's Prayer or the Peace Prayer. And just gradually, and the thing is about, you have no right to be there or to do that. This isn't about whether you have a right or not. You can. It's about allowing yourself to do it. It's not about rights.
Well, and I even expressed to you when we were doing our tech testing and whatnot, and I expressed to a Chuck, he lives in Wales, and that it's an imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
It was feeling this, like, I even said, oh, well, I'm going to get interviewed, but I'm not interesting. What am I going to say for all this time? You feel like you don't belong. Even as a lawyer to this day, I still feel I have
Yeah.
imposters. I write a periodical on my firm, the 4 lawyers in my firm, excuse me. We write legal, responses and analyses and whatnot in a periodical that goes out to all the other lawyers in Northern Nevada. And for the longest time, I'm like, how am I writing this? I'm 41 years old. These other guys, have years of experience on me. How can I have anything to offer? But the truth is that we do have a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And once we start to, our place is where we are. We be comfortable in that. I hope that this brings a little bit of inspiration to her, because you're doing what's right for you, and you just do what's right for you until things will grow or things will change. It'll evolve, and you just do whatever you feel comfortable, and that's enough. That's absolutely enough.
That's right. Thank you for that. And just to get back to what you attract, Pat says what you focus on is what you attract. I wouldn't meditate if my mind was full of fear of harmful forces.
Correct.
And Philippa says, yes, I believe that and trust. Those that fear have no real experience of the magic. I suppose it's about, fear keeps you safe in many ways. It keeps you, it's not all bad.
Right.
It helps you to take care of
survive.
To survive.
It's a survival tactic. We fear the vehicle coming at us, because if we don't, we won't get out of the way and we will die. It has an evolutionary purpose, but allowing it to control and allowing it to become something that attracts more fear is what we have to be conscious of. Yes.
Absolutely. So there's lots of support here for you. Ferdia says, be gentle with yourself, start small and simply work up. It's like getting used to allowing yourself to play or dance or to do crafts as a grown-up. Exactly. Simple ones. And then, okay. What this is Gabby. What a wonderful evening. Enriching, empowering, heart-to-heart, transparent conversation. Flowing with ease. What a gift of the world this is. Isn't she lovely? It feels like you've joined the Captain Planet team. Thank you. Too energized. Now, sorry, Gabby. I hope that you don't have an early start.
I know. It does feel like. I'm so glad to hear her say that, because it is. We do feel like we're part of a team and that we're part of something together, and it's nice. It's nice to feel that. It's nice to feel that camaraderie, and like I said, I had such a wonderful time with everyone in Glastonbury. So to hear everyone again, Pat, Gabby, Patty, it's just nice to see everyone again. So
that's just beautiful. So now there's something that people need to know. Oh yeah, you were going to tell a story about
a little local legend. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we have a beautiful local. Well, I don't know if it's a beautiful local legend. It's a very interesting local legend. So, one of the conversations we had touched on during our chat here is that, the natives of this land, who are the indigenous people of this land, and that's a really hard question to answer. Here's the legend, and here's why this is hard to answer. In Nevada, we have a lot of tiny little rural towns. One of them is Lovelock. At Lovelock, there is the Lovelock Caves. This is part of the Paiute land. And the Paiute tribes and the surrounding tribes were occupying the land, and there were red-headed giants. Digest that a little. Red-headed giants, people with flaming red hair, were in the area, and they were cannibals, and they would attack the tribe, and they would, kill the members of the tribe. And so these redheaded, the Sita Cha is how I think they were called. The Sita Cha, the people, the Tule eaters is what they were called. And they, the area that we sit on, Black Rock Desert, down through Pyramid, and we still have Lake Lahontan. These are remnants of an ancient inland sea called the Lahontan Lake or sea. Is huge, massive area. So we find aquatic dinosaurs, buried throughout our hills and whatnot. And so at the time of this, the Paiute tribe dealing with these cannibals, this lake was a lot bigger. and the giants were called the Tule Eaters, and they would get on their rafts and they would get away from the Paiutes by getting, sailing across the sea, the inland sea. But finally, after being terrorized and eaten and abused, the Paiute elders came together and they reached out to elders of the other tribes, and they banded together to defeat these red-headed giants. And they had been eliminating them systematically. It got to the point where only a few giants remained, and they were at the Lovelock Caves, and the giants had gone into the caves and barricaded themselves in, so they would not leave. To prevail, the Paiutes piled bushes against the entrance and started a fire and asphyxiated the giants. In about, I think it was, 1911 or 1912, and there's no evidence of this, but there's anecdotal evidence. Sarah Winnemucca was the daughter of the chief of the Paiutes, and she's the one who retold this story, this legend of their people, that the cannibalistic red-headed giants, instantly our brains go to Scotland, Ireland, red-headed people, maybe Viking people from the Norse area who had come over and made it over to the Americas. Now there is some tie that it could be some people, some of the tribes down in South America too that had come up. We don't really know. But Sarah Winnemucca had said, I have the hair of these red-headed giants on my dress and a lock of the hair as well. And she had retold these stories that the giants were mummified in that cave. In 1911 and 1912, miners had gone in and said that they found these mummies, but they had just taken pickaxes and just kind of done their thing. Later, when anthropologists had gotten in, they did find that the Paiutes had occupied that cave up to 2,000 so years ago. They found decoy ducks, baskets, other remnants of civilization in that area. And so that is one of our local legends, that this cave is the final resting place of this last tribe of cannibalistic red-headed people that did not look like or resemble any of the other peoples of the area. And I always found that such a fascinating story, knowing that on the East Coast of America, there are dolmen and there's like an ancient Stonehenge type of sacred circles over there that we have found evidence that the Viking peoples had made it as far as Maine and as up on the coast of Canada and whatnot. And, so it's a really interesting local legend. It's I want to take the seed group members in our area on a field trip up there and go sit and maybe sing some Awens in the cave, because I'm sure they would resonate beautifully. But
it's really interesting because, for most of us, the idea of cannibals is quite, horrifying. I lived in Lesotho in Southern Africa. I came back 31 years ago, but I lived there for 3 years. And it's a mountain kingdom. It's one of the 3 kingdoms in Africa. And it was founded by the Basotho Nation is a mixture of all sorts of people. There isn't just one tribe. There's one language now. But they were united by their king, King Moshoeshoe I. And so they were a mixture of people fleeing from refugees from the Zulu attacks and all sorts of people. So Zulu speakers and etc. And there's the Tabopos, he was the mountain of the night. It comes down during the day and it goes up at night, so they're protected.
Oh, okay.
And so he had his fortress on the top of the mountain, and you can climb it. It's a big hill. And there were cannibals fleeing also Shaka, Zulu, and they wanted to join Moshoeshoe and his tribe and his people. And his people said, no, we can't have those. They're cannibals. They'll eat us. He said, no, we must welcome them because within them are the spirits of our ancestors.
Oh, how fascinating.
And that really, I thought, that was fascinating, because I remember working with somebody, and I can't remember their name, but she said it means cannibal. Her surname.
wow.
And I just thought that is really interesting. So going back to that cave, okay, might you say, well, terrible things happened, but those red-headed giants carried the spirits of the ancestors of the Paiute. It's a really interesting thing how we are interlinked. Jamie says, well, I used to be a redhead, so I was just thinking, oh, was it one of my ancestors? Jamie says the gene for red hair came out of Africa, not sure about the Americas. Regardless, it simply survived in its greatest quantities in places like Ireland. Who knows? And also in Scandinavia. There are still natural redheads in Africa that are not attributed to. The redheads that I came across in Africa were albino. So they were, you might get albino who are snow white, snow white hair or red hair. And then there's also, I've seen red-haired children with kwashiorkor, which is a protein deficiency. The Maasai, the Moran, they are not redheaded. They have black hair, but they color their hair with red ochre.
And that was something that I'd heard too, is that they would color their hairs that color. But to have, if it was colored, it may not last generations. But Sarah Winnemucca, the chief's daughter, says, "No, I have this red hair." So it's we have no evidence to go back and really kind of verify it, but it's a really beautiful local legend, I think.
Lexi says the legend of red-headed giants is also told on the Hopi land, but about the friendlies and the hostiles. Friendlier welcomed the white man and his religion. Hostiles did not. And there's someone else.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
On that note, what is I remember it was in some of my reading, I believe I was reading something with Philip's books. He was mentioning having come over to the Americas, and the native peoples were super interested in what the Druids were doing because it was so similar, because we call on directions.
Yes.
We call on elements and spirit animals of those elements, maybe not the exact animal, but we have a lot of similar associations. What's so fascinating is that peoples from different parts of the world who had no connection with each other had similar ideas or truths or beliefs that came together, and I recently had the opportunity to go sit in a sweat lodge with a native elder and some native folks, and one of the wives is one of my friends, and so we went through sweat lodge together, and it was a beautifully powerful experience. And I brought in a mix of vervain and tobacco, because like the cluties that we tie to trees, there's also there's prayer sachets that hang from the top of the sweat lodge and then are burned later. And just as we went in, we were smudged with native sage. We were ritualistically cleansed, and then we sang songs and prayers in the sweat lodge as a ritualistic cleansing and way to heal and make prayers to others. We gather in a group and we chant the same chants, and we sing together and drum together, doing the same thing, asking for healing, asking for prayers for others. So I think it's just it's fascinating to me that regardless of the inception of the time, because I know that anthropologically maybe some of these things are made later in time, but time is relevant, and it all just it's like us discovering similar truths together in a spirit of love and togetherness. I don't know. I hope that's not too cheesy, but it does. It's very it's empowering and fulfilling to know that it's not, Druidry is not just one idea. It is a very much a shared idea, and there's similarities of this story with the cannibals and the story, these similar stories from around the way. The story of Finn McCool and Taliesin having similarities between the two, So it's such a beautiful harmony that comes.
Oh, Poppy says she's a natural redhead and she's from Crete. That's really interesting. So red-haired Greeks.
Oh, yeah.
Or Cretans. Yeah. Sean Clancy said, this might be a connection, Poppy. It said the mother of the sons of Mil was an Egyptian princess named Scotia, and that's where the red hair comes from. And some Egyptian mummies had red hair.
Yes.
Poppy said she was born in Crete, grew up in America. They would ask me where I'm from. I would answer Greek, and they'd say, "No, you don't look Greek. You look Irish." Sorry about that, Poppy. It's like the stereotypes. But it's interesting because people used to say, "Oh, you're typically Irish with the red hair, etc." But in the mythology, when they would describe somebody, if you weren't Finn, like Finn McCool with fair hair, you had hair as dark as the raven, skin as white as snow, and lips as red as hawberries. So it was the dark hair, the pale skin, and the red lips. Rather, no description of, the typical one wasn't red hair, which is really, really interesting.
Interesting. No, it's because that was one of the aspects of that tale of the Lovelock Cave and the Paiutes, is that these giants were so foreign because of the color of their skin and hair, because the Paiutes were generally of darker skin, black hair, and that was what was, normal for the tribe and the surrounding tribes, not just them. Yeah. Very interesting.
Oh, it's fascinating. Absolutely.
Common ancestors, right? We really are just branches of the same tree.
Of Africa. So
yes.
It's and the Gabriella says, didn't red hair come from the Vikings? Well, you see, it's like, where did it all come from? Who knows? Well, there were redheads in Ireland before the Vikings came, so maybe it came from.
Well, and it's genetics. All it takes is someone getting, frisky with someone up north, and then everything's changing constantly and evolving.
Well, interesting. I was in Jerusalem in 1983, and I stayed in the Arab Quarter, and with an Arab family, and their son had red hair and brown eyes, and this was the first red-haired Arab I had ever seen, and I was going, "Oh my goodness!" Yes. I always thought, I'd seen the odd brown-eyed redhead, and they're beautiful because they can actually have a golden skin and they tan and don't burn, like me, who goes from white to pink in pain. And I was envious of anyone who wasn't a redhead, and anyone with brown eyes was like, you're so lucky. So here was this redhead with brown eyes, and he'd kind of, I suppose, olive skin with little freckles. And then I went over to Egypt, and I was warned, they were saying, Cairo is, for a young woman, Cairo is like Rome. You're going to have men pinching your bum, and you'll have no peace. I had men standing back to let me cross, and I couldn't understand why they were so respectful, because I was 23, looked about 12, until I noticed women from buses pointing to my hair, and they were wearing they had henna in theirs. So I thought, oh, maybe it's considered something particularly a good thing. Where that was never my experience. I was teased I hated having red hair as a child, and by the time I began to appreciate it, I had gone this color. So
the way of life, right?
So unfair when you have it. It's terrible. So Pat says 30% of Irish folk have red hair, according to stats, closer to 10 from experience. I'd imagine so. It's a recessive gene. I think it's 4% of the world population of red hair. So.
And in this particular tale, whether or not they dyed their hair or it was a true genetic, expression, we just don't know. But I love the mystery of that, and just, well, maybe they were from overseas, and they, and there really was colonization here as far as Nevada, with just different peoples.
Okay, well, listen, we're getting loads of stuff here. Carmen says Caucasian mummies were found in China with red hair and tartan clothes, 5,000 to 6,000 BC.
There we go.
Okay, well, that's really, really interesting. So now, before we're coming to the end of our time, but you have a claim to fame.
Oh, yes, that's kind of funny.
This is really, really important. Share this with the group. With
absolutely. So in the American school system, we go through primary school, our which we call elementary school, middle school. We have high school thereafter, and then we go to college. And so I went down to Las Vegas for college, and like I said, that's about 8 hours south. It's a much bigger metropolitan area. And at that time, and please don't ask me to sing, but at the time I could sing. I could sing much better. I had a higher voice, and I was in the UNLV choir. Well, it was in 1999, and it was, you know, the turn of the century and whatnot, and the MGM Grand was putting on Barbara Streisand's Last Hurrah. And Barbara Streisand asked the UNLV choir to come sing with them. And so I spent my 21st birthday in a little room, or 20th birthday, in a little room, in a recorded room, singing live over speakers with Barbara Streisand. And the choir was asked to be staged in for one of her songs. So we were, myself, I was the older, I was 20 years old, and then another gentleman. We were preset on stage with the, you know, she puts on a whole production, Barbara does. And there was little Barbara Streisand. There's this actress named Lauren, and it's an amazing voice. And so myself and one other guy were staged right behind her, and HBO filmed this. So if anyone's really loves Barbara Streisand, the Timeless concert, if you get that video, and I do have a copy of it, yours truly is right there behind little Lauren singing as Barbara's down on stage singing. And so what I really loved about that experience is that Barbara came back during rehearsals and whatnot. You know, she has a reputation. If you don't know, she's, you know, a diva. But she came back and was listening to the choir sing, and she starts yelling at the director, no, it's supposed to be like the CD. Choir, you're great, you're fine, you're wonderful, let you know. And so when she was leaving the room, she has bodyguards all around her. An impetuous little 20-year-old, I jump up and I run out and I go, "Hey, Barbara, thank you for letting us sing with you." "Oh no, honey, thank you," she says to us. And she is just like, it was one of those moments when you got to meet someone who was larger than life and do something that was really, it's my little claim to fame, I like to say. So yeah, I'm on an HBO special, The Timeless concert. What's that?
She met you.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I know she'll never remember me, but I remember her. And you know, and it was I never had an appreciation for Barbara Streisand's bardic ways, I guess, as you will. What's unique about Barbara Streisand is you can understand every single word she sings because her diction is perfect.
Yeah.
And so, you know, compare her with, say, Janet Jackson, who you can't understand a single word, but you love the music. You can understand every single word Barbara sings. And so that gave me an appreciation for that. She was a redhead, I believe, right? Natural redhead to some degree, or auburn hair, anyway. So that was back in my days when I used to act and sing and whatnot. And you know, everything has a purpose, I think, and so that actually lent to coming to Glastonbury and being in the OBOD ceremonies, because I wasn't afraid of getting up and talking and being in front of people. So, but yeah, that was a fun experience in my life. I will tell you that was a fun experience.
Oh, well done. So your bardic talents now are, you play the handpan.
Yes, I so during COVID, you know, we all got locked down and we all got stuck inside. And, you know, I'm not proficient by any means, but I started learning to play the handpan, and it is a beautiful etheric instrument. And I have taught myself to play, and I have a handpan now in D minor. And
Right.
it's you know, sometimes when we do ritual and whatnot, I'll pull that out and start playing. I was playing at Burning Man, in fact, as well. So, you know, just it's very calming. It's for those of you who don't know what it is, I actually have it right here.
Aren't you?
Yeah, I'll play a little bit for you. So it's like a saucer. It's like a flying saucer, and it's a steel drum. It's a reverse steel drum. So, but would you like me to do that now? In fact,
Play, yes.
All right. So bear with me, but we'll give it a good go. All right. Just tell me if you can't hear it, but I think it should be okay. We'll do this. I don't know if you can see that, but there we go.
Well,
a little bit of hand pan playing.
Poppy says, I found a handpan about a year ago. I became addicted to the music. I love it.
Oh, isn't it pretty? It's so pretty.
And Stephanie says, my elderly mother bought a handpan during the pandemic too. It's been adorable to watch her to learn to play. And then Pat says, go for it, Travis, handpan solo.
Thanks, Pat. You know, if I could trek it over to England, I'd bring it over and we could, you know, play during it instead. But it is quite cumbersome, I'll tell you. It's a big turtle shell on the back of my back.
Oh, okay. Well, you're getting lots of lovely. It's so ethereal. It's magical and lovely.
It is ethereal. I think that is the perfect adjective. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh, wonderful. So, God, I you know, we've only covered.
I know.
What I want to talk to you about, but anyway, we're coming up to time. You mentioned going to a voodoo ritual, or no, you went to a voodoo.
No, I went to a Hungan voodoo priest recently and had some cards read. Yes, so Ben Stimpson is an OBOD member, and he is up in Canada. He's a fantastic therapist. If anyone's looking, when during COVID, when my dad had passed and whatnot, I needed some talk therapy, and so I engaged Ben, and he referred me to James is the Hungan's name. So and I hope I don't butcher this, but I understood that a Hungan was kind of the highest level of voodoo priest, and just like the tribes of my area are reaching out to other white Europeans to kind of carry on tradition because, you know, things are changing and cultures, we don't want cultures to die. I understand that a lot of the voodoo practitioners are doing the same thing, that they are reaching out to others and growing that culture. And so when I got back from England, like I said, I felt it was very taking a pilgrimage, because that's what this really was for me when I came over to the summer gathering. I had come out of 2 years of dealing with death and loss, the loss of my spirit animal, the loss of my father, dealing with the loss of society as we knew it. Things have changed dramatically since that point. I had to go through a lot of healing. And so I engaged some shamanic practices, two practices. One is called Kambo, Kambo. It's a purge. It's a poison that comes from the little green tree frog from Brazil. Yeah. Yes. So anyway, that is administered to you through little burns that a priest or priestess will put on you, and it's a purge. It's not fun, but when I did that, I felt like I got a lot of anger and angst out. And then I followed that up with another practice. It's the venomous secretion of the Sonoran desert toad called bufo. That does have a psychedelic quality to it. And I had done that a couple weeks before I came to England. I got the messages I needed to hear for healing. I got very clearly that my spirit dog has never left me. He's been reincarnated in one of my current dogs, and I see so many similarities in these two dogs and their personality and the way that we interact. I got a message that my father has never left me, that we are all one and together in a beautiful connectivity of light. And so then I come to England and I have this, I fly into Heathrow. I immediately get on a train. I go to Paddington and just go right out to Bath. I didn't stay in London at all. Went to Bath, hung out there, then came down to Glastonbury. But the minute that I was stepping in Bath and I stepped in Glastonbury, I just felt called home in a lot of ways. I just felt like the enchantment of these isles can't be understated. Yes, we have similar feelings here in the States and similar spots, but it was in the land. It was running in the current of the land for me. And so when I got back, I have this strong desire even now to uproot everything that I've worked for 41 years and move over and just get an advanced law degree and come to England. And the American political culture that we talked about is not helping me stay here. Let's put it that way. And so Years ago, I had gone to Louisiana. I'd gone to New Orleans. I stayed near the French Quarter and with a friend of mine and had the opportunity to kind of tour the French Quarter and witness some of these voodoo temples and some of the cemeteries around the way. And Louisiana and the French Quarter is a lot like stepping off and feeling that that light or the connectivity in England. And there's a magic to the quarter. There's an absolute palpable magic.
Absolutely.
And so in college, I had studied I took in a religious course, and we had touched on voodoo, voodoo, hoodoo, and kind of what those symbiotic religions did with Catholicism mainly. So I visited one of the temples, and at the time I was, broke, and they wanted $100 for a reading, and I was like, oh no, I can't do that. But I want to come in and I'll give an offering to the saints and to the gods here and whatnot. And so when I had gotten back from England, I was talking with Ben, and he mentioned that he knows a Hungan voodoo priest, and I was like, I would really like to explore what it would look like if I left and gave up my life here and moved there. And so if anyone's ever interested, Trav Hunter is my handle on Facebook. You are free to instant message me. I will absolutely pass you along to James. It was one of the most spot on readings I have ever received in my life. He tells me, he goes, I can trace my lineage through the females of my line. He goes, I see a lot of women that are calling you back to another country, to a very green England. They're calling you back to England. And my mind is blown. Like, yes, absolutely. I can trace my father's lineage through the females. I can trace my mother's lineage through the females back to Italy. I've been to Italy. I did not feel the same pull that I felt. Yeah. So I've been to both places of my ancestral lineage. I've never done the DNA testing. I was able to, I'm kind of shy to do that, because they're taking my DNA, I kid, but who knows? And they're selling it to other people. That's the part that bothers me. But
yep.
So I'm able to trace my lineage through my mom having been the matriarch of the family, and then my dad had a family Bible. My grandmother had a family Bible, and we have a crest of arms for the Bliss family. So tracing it through the Coreys, the Bliss family, and then I could see a connection back to 1220 England and some Scotland. So I wanted to engage this. Ben spoke very highly of James, and I can echo that. It was just an amazing reading. So if anyone's ever interested, I highly recommend a voodoo priest. He's fantastic.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. So my last question, or two parts. What is your favorite time of the year, and what is your favorite ceremony to mark the Wheel of the Year?
My favorite time of the year is autumn. And so we are marching right into it. My house, I have a little candle burning behind me. I've got decor all over the place with autumn. My altar is all pumpkined out with, gourds and beans and all kinds of pretty things. It was my dad's favorite time of the year. So it's just such a gorgeous display of color in the plants. You can feel the change of the seasons. I prefer cooler weather. And the weathers are, it's all cooling off. All of the plants get blazing red and orange. And I don't know if it's the same for others, but I feel a palpable magic to this time. So Alban Elvid and Samhain are my two favorite rituals of the year. I do find those, I love doing a dumb feast on Samhain, closer to midnight. Sometimes I can't make it to midnight, but I'll have some friends over. We'll set up a place for the ancestors. We'll make a feast. We'll feed them, and we'll have a dumb feast, meaning a feast in silence. And then when we go to the dessert portion, we'll break our silence and have some revelry about it. We engage the OBOD rituals and conduct those, which are so beautiful. They really are just so beautiful. So those are my favorite times of year, and I really do enjoy celebrating. So when I first started this path, I'll wrap it up here, but I was a little scared, or I guess I felt some loss in giving up some of the Christian holidays that I'd come to know, Christmas Eve, I had traditions on those days. But as I've gone through this path for the last, I think I'm on it like since 2017, so 5 going on 6 years, it has just been a beautiful, I've become accustomed to these traditions and these rituals, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful and so connective. So connective. You connect to the land, you connect to that time. So,
it's just beautiful. Trav, it has been such a joy.
Thank you.
Chatting to you. I mean, I could talk for hours, but it's been just absolutely lovely. And I know from the comments of people have really, really enjoyed it. Helen says, "Thank you. Very helpful evening." Well, sorry, I'm just lost that. She said, "I've spent my life not fitting in, and the things you say make a lot of sense."
Yeah, it feels like we don't fit in, but I tell you, we do. We have place.
Yes, we do. Yeah. And so Roland from Belgium, thank you, Travis and Eimear, for a lovely evening. Yes. And I think it's Chuck, but he's Blade Maur.
Yep, that's Chuck.
Oh, hi, Chuck. I wasn't too sure if it was.
Big bad wolf in Welsh, it means.
Oh, is that what it means? I find that really hard to believe.
He's a big teddy bear.
So, and he says, "It was great. Told you."
Thank you, Chuck.
So listen, I'm going to let you say thank you to, or not say thank you, say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll leave you backstage, and then we can look at the comments afterwards.
Excellent. Well, listen, everybody, thank you very much for making this such a wonderful chat. I was really a little bit nervous about it, just because I wanted to make sure that it was interesting and we had something to talk about, but it was so awesome and beautiful to connect with everyone around the world. And if my experience can help anybody else, that's what it's about. So thank you very, very much.
So I'll just see you in a few minutes. So thank you, everybody, for your wonderful comments. And of course, they come so quickly, I didn't get to look at all of them, but we will look at them afterwards. But it's really, really always appreciate, your contribution to these discussions, because you add so much to it. So I will say goodbye and enjoy the rest of your day or night or morning. But remember, we're having our Alban Elvad Connacht an Óir Autumn Equinox online ceremony this Saturday at 7 p.m. UK time. And those of you who have registered for the Zoom meetup, hopefully we will see you there. So until Saturday, or until this time next week, Slán go fóill, and I wish you all the best. So Banachtaí Connacht an Óir Díobh go léir, the blessings of the autumn equinox to you all. So Ihawa from here, or Slán.